Health officials in Gaza have accused Israel of killing at least 39 people near distribution centers handing out aid. Israel disputes that number and insists that its forces fired warning shots to protect fellow troops. Here, the Prime Minister described the situation in Gaza as shocking and intolerable, as his government imposed sanctions on two right-wing Israeli ministers accused by the UK of inciting extremist violence. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
This is the road in central Gaza that Palestinians trek every morning in the hope of getting some aid. Thousands and thousands desperate for food. But once again, it became a death zone. Dozens were killed and more than 100 wounded, according to the health ministry in Gaza, when Israeli forces opened fire. Wherever the camera turns, more wounded are being carried away from the scene. The IDF said that warning shots were fired at suspects who posed a threat to Israeli troops, and they disputed the number of casualties.
We want to live, we want to eat. We have children and wives. We want to live in our homes. 3 years of war, bodies ripped apart. All this for some flour.
On Monday night, 3 paramedics were killed as they went to rescue people from the scene of an airstrike east of Gaza City. A second airstrike then hit them as they worked to find the injured. Their bodies could only be recovered this morning because of the ongoing fighting. They were retrieved by their own colleagues.
They killed humanity, killed truth. They killed those who respond to emergency calls, who stand with our Palestinian people. We know very well that with every mission, we may have to say goodbye to those closest to our hearts.
Today, the British government announced action against 2 senior Israeli ministers, Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, in response to the ongoing war in Gaza and the expansion of settlements in the occupied West Bank.
We have been absolutely clear. This has to stop, and we stand for a 2-state solution. And the settler violence that we've seen in the West Bank particularly is entirely unacceptable and must stop.
Both Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich brushed off the sanctions and said they wouldn't change anything.
Britain has already tried once to prevent us from settling the cradle of our homeland, and we will not allow them to do so again. We are determined, with God's help, to continue and to build.
The Israeli military operation in Gaza continues to push forward in almost all areas of the Strip now. International pressure might be increasing on Israel. But for now, it is not deterring them. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
And let's go live now to Downing Street and speak to our political correspondent, Liz Bates. Liz, predictable criticism from Israel over these sanctions, but now criticism from the United States as well.
Yes, and you might think that number 10, given the strength of taking out sanctions against Israeli ministers, that's a big step forward compared to just a ramping up of rhetoric that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. No doubt in number 10 they were expecting, first of all, that backlash that we saw from Israeli politicians that we've seen throughout the day. But they will also, of course, have been keeping an eye on what Washington was going to say. And now we know Secretary of State Marco Rubio has on social media rebuked the United Kingdom, Canada, Norway, New Zealand and Australia and has said these sanctions do not advance US-led efforts to achieve a ceasefire, bring all hostages home and end the war. We reject any notion of equivalence. Hamas is a terrorist organisation, he says, that committed unspeakable atrocities, continues to hold innocent civilians hostage and prevents the people of Gaza from living in peace. We remind our partners not to forget who the real enemy is, and he says says the US urges the reversal of the sanctions and stands shoulder to shoulder with Israel. So in no uncertain terms, that is the US saying to the UK government, change your mind, stand down when it comes to sanctions. So that will certainly be cause for concern in number 10. They will be considering now how to react to that for lots of different reasons. First of all, it's for an international conflict that is so volatile, so delicate, having the international community fractured is not what anybody wants to see, but also, of course, because of how central the US is when it comes to being a player in terms of getting Israel to change its behaviour on aid on the West Bank and on progressing a peace process. Look, in the House of Commons today, the UK government set out their reasons for these sanctions. There is pressure on the other side domestically here from MPs. They welcomed that announcement today, but many of them believe that the UK government could go even further, more sanctions on trade and arms sales. So you can see the diplomatic tightrope that they have to walk here in Downing Street. It will be something that they will be considering very carefully tonight.
Liz Bates with the latest there in Downing Street. Liz, thank you. Let's bring you some breaking news now. And demonstrators are clashing with riot police for a second night in Ballymena in Northern Ireland. These are live pictures that we're bringing you now. The unrest began yesterday, late last night, over allegations that a girl had been sexually assaulted. Police say that the unrest was racially motivated disorder and 15 officers were injured. Let's go to our correspondent Conor Gillis, who joins us now on the phone from Ballymena. Conor, tell us a little bit about what the situation is like there now.
Yeah, good evening, Barbara. It is night 2 and it is just as ugly. The angry mob and the scenes that we witnessed last night on their rampage, well, this is continuing to spill across this town. Police coming under attack with bricks, petrol bombs. You've just witnessed the water cannon truck driving away. That has been deployed over the past couple of hours as well. Clearly, there is simmering tension in this part of Northern Ireland, and that is boiling over once again tonight. Police are saying that last night's ambush on the home of ethnic minority members of the community here was racist thuggery, pure and simple. And that, Barbara, I think seems to be an excuse that is being used by some here tonight to fuel some of the additional anger. Because let's remember, this all began with a peaceful protest yesterday after that alleged sexual assault on a teenage girl here in this town. 2 teenage boys who are Romanian have appeared in court, and tonight another man has been arrested. But that vigil, police say, has been hijacked, continues to be hijacked by anti-immigration protesters, and police say there has been a degree of planning. Well, I can tell you here tonight, this very much feels like another planned night of violence. We've heard stories today of families having to barricade themselves into the attics of their homes in the streets around these pictures that you are seeing here just now. Clearly, police are in for a long night, and the talk here in this town is it could go on for weeks yet.
Conor Gillis with the latest there in Ballymena. Conor, I know you'll be following developments for us, but for the moment, thank you. Now, the Chancellor has announced a £14 billion investment in nuclear energy as part of the spending review, which she will present to Parliament tomorrow. Rachel Reeves will update MPs on the budget being allocated to government departments until 2030. But she and the Prime Minister face pressure to explain where extra funding on the winter fuel allowance, defence and extra free school meals will actually come from. Our political editor Beth Rigby reports now on the trade-offs facing the government.
Rewire in Britain. The PM in East Anglia today to give these students some good news.
OK, so far so good. So far so good, yes.
A massive money injection for a new nuclear power plant where they live in Suffolk.
This is about good, well-paid, secure jobs, skilled jobs across a range of topics as we go down this road in relation to Sizewell.
This is a big investment, £14.2 billion to develop Sizewell C, with more than 10,000 jobs to be created over the next decade. All part of a capital spending blitz, the government borrowing tens of billions to invest in power stations, rail and tram networks, scientific research up and down the country. The message: the government will invest to renew Britain. But in all of this, a health warning. When it comes to day-to-day spending on public services, a squeeze is coming as the government prioritises NHS and defence spending, with the Home Office and local government among departments losing out.
It really brings together.
Questions then around whether Labour will meet manifesto promises, be it on housing and policing. Questions too on whether the government will stick with other plans after buckling over winter fuel allowance cuts. Can you just be honest about winter fuel allowance, that you reversed it because of poor local election results, you realised it was really unpopular, and you listened to voters? That is the truth, isn't it?
Well, of course we listen to voters all of the time. That's part and parcel of being a politician. The first question is, did we make the right decision in the first place? I believe we did, because we needed to stabilise the economy. I wanted to look to see whether we could have more pensioners eligible for this winter. I announced that some weeks ago.
You realised you got it wrong?
No, we had to. I could have pretended in the budget that there wasn't a £22 billion black hole. I wasn't prepared to do that.
So you're reversing a tax-raising measure, and now all the talk is you're going to have to raise taxes.
Everybody understandably challenges me to say you're going to put tax up. We didn't do it in the spring statement, notwithstanding most people are saying you're going to. Equally, I don't think the first lever that a government should go to is the tax lever.
This spending review is a massive moment for a Prime Minister who's had a tough first year and now wants to turn the corner, but in practice it's all rather difficult. The economic outlook is uncertain, and this Prime Minister is under acute pressure from his MPs and voters too not to cut spending. That's what the winter fuel allowance reversal shows. And so in the coming months, he's going to be under even more pressure to raise taxes again. This is not a moment to decide tax rises. That all happens in the budget in the autumn. But this spending review is a moment that will define Labour in power and how our country looks and feels for years to come. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, the Chancellor has now agreed the budgets for every government department, which she will announce in tomorrow's spending review. So where is the money going? Our economics and data editor Ed Conway has this analysis.
It's the spending review, a big moment for the government and for the rest of us, because we get a sense of where it's planning to spend money, our money, and it's quite a lot of it. Let's look at the big picture, OK? So this is showing you how much money the government brings in terms of taxes. So that's money that we pay in taxes, and how much it spends. So 1.35 trillion versus 1.23 trillion. You've probably noticed a difference here. Look, this bar spending is higher than that bar. The difference between them, that's the borrowing. So we talk about that a lot, don't we, in budgets, about how much extra borrowing there is in order to make those two lines add up. This time around, it's less about that, less about taxes, less about borrowing. It's more about spending. And it's not the whole lot of this. This is quite an important distinction here. So a large chunk of this spending is actually, it's known as annually managed expenditure. It's not really, I mean, it's a bit of a strange name for it, because that's things like benefits, it's pensions, it's debt interest, it's the stuff that is harder to control on a day-to-day or a year-to-year basis. Instead, the focus in the spending review is not about that, it's about this. It's about departmental spending, £554 billion worth of it. And we can also kind of break that down a little bit as well, because some of the spending goes into day-to-day stuff, so paying, for instance, for nurses' wages. Some of it is investment, so spending on hospitals, actually building things. And that breakdown matters, OK, because you have to look at those things differently. They've got different effect. And if we take that current spending, a lot of what we're going to hear about here, it's not just about totals. It's more about how that money is divided up between different departments. So right now, this year, here is how day-to-day spending is divided up. You've got health there. You can see that by far and away the biggest line is health. But you've got education, you've got intelligence and defence. The big question this time around is, how much do those bars go up? We've heard a lot about more money for health, we've heard a lot about more money for defence, but how does it change the overall balance of spending? And then there's the big picture, OK? And this matters as well, OK? Because it's that question about whether the government is increasing the overall amount of spending all that much. This is showing you day-to-day spending going back to 2006-07, investment as well, that's the red line, and it's inflation adjusted. And there's one thing that this government want to highlight a lot, which is that the Conservatives were planning for those lines to be basically flat, actually a little bit falling when it comes to investments. That this government is planning to increase them considerably. So look at just how those dotted lines go up by more. But there's a big proviso to this, OK? If you take that same data and don't just inflation adjust it, but divide it by a share of GDP, which is kind of what you should do when you're comparing it over a long period like that. Same data, divided by GDP, and it's a very different picture, OK? So look at this black line, OK? That, you can see, so you can see the big picture here. That's austerity, how that line went down. Spending was cut over that period, day-to-day spending. There's COVID there. But what you can also make out is, look, even at the peak of where we're heading in the next few years, that is still going to be below the pre-2014 levels. So it's not austerity, it's not coming down, but it's still not getting you back to that pre-austerity level. However, when it comes to investment, look at this line. It's hard to make out here, but actually, that is heading to the highest level for decades. So doubtless, that investment, all those spending plans, building stuff, that is going to be the main thing that Rachel Reeves wants to focus on.
And we are on air with a special programme for the Spending Review tomorrow from 11 o'clock. The families of 3 girls killed in the Southport attack have welcomed a contribution of £5 million from the government to a project in their memory. Relatives of Elsie Stancombe, Alice Da Silva Aguiar and B.B. King met the Prime Minister in Downing Street to discuss their plans to regenerate a town centre square as a memorial to the girls.
I speak on behalf of all of us. It was a really positive meeting. We are happy to say that off the back of the meeting today, the funds that had already been provided for a regeneration project by Sefton Council and Liverpool City Council, that the PM has just announced that the government will match that, enabling us to create and continue our girls' legacy in Southport. So I've come out of there, I still feel quite surprised. I still can't believe that we had a vision and that vision is going to be turned into a reality.
The activist Greta Thunberg has accused Israel of kidnap after Israeli officials seized a Gaza-bound aid boat and deported her. The 22-year-old was among a dozen people on a yacht trying to break a sea blockade. She spoke after arriving in France from Israel.
We were illegally attacked and kidnapped by Israel and taken against our will to Israel, where we were detained. And then some of us deported, some are still there. There are very big uncertainties because it was quite chaotic and uncertain, so I don't really know what's going on. I haven't had a phone for many days. This is yet another international a violation of international rights, adding to the list of countless of such, especially towards Palestinians, that Israel are committing by blocking and preventing humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. That is illegal.
Russia has carried out widespread drone and missile strikes across Ukraine. In Odessa, at least 2 people were killed, with 8 others injured. Ukrainian officials say medical facilities, including a maternity hospital, were also damaged. The capital, Kyiv, came under heavy bombardment, including a 5-hour drone assault. 4 people were injured as fires broke out across the city. President Trump has warned that he's prepared to order America's military to suppress rebellion if protests against immigration raids in Los Angeles escalate. He said tonight he would consider invoking the Insurrection Act, giving him power to direct the U.S. armed forces to quell disturbances. Our U.S. correspondent Martha Kellner reports now from Los Angeles.
Holding vigil outside government buildings, the troops Donald Trump says are saving this city. He's doubled the number of National Guard here, and now Marines on their way too, despite violence being less widespread than over the weekend.
There were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. If we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning.
There's no convincing evidence that protesters here are being paid. There are organised antagonists among them, though. Others just opportunistic. Overnight scenes of looting across LA's downtown. The vast majority of these protests have been peaceful. And it was the Los Angeles Police Department dispersing them.
This is one of the main government buildings in downtown LA. Earlier on, it was being guarded by police and sheriff's deputies. Then the National Guard moved in, and the real anger is being directed towards them.
Los Angeles is on edge. This part of downtown in the grips of a military operation, the centre of a political standoff. California Governor Gavin Newsom posted these pictures of soldiers sent here now sleeping on the floor, calling them pawns in Trump's political game playing.
Crowd control explosions are being deployed from the rooftops of the federal buildings surrounding this plaza, a bid by law enforcement to disperse some of the protesters here.
Many of those gathering are first and second generation immigrants. They're furious about raids that took place in LA last week. Dozens of immigrants were rounded up in the garment district, an area packed with clothing wholesalers. Brianna's dad was among them. He'd lived here illegally for over 10 years.
My father got deported 2 days ago. Unfortunately, he wasn't here to celebrate my birthday. So I'm here protesting for him and 2 of my uncles that were deported. So I stand here today for my family to get free and get freedom for everyone else who was affected.
As dusk fell, the crowds thinned. Demonstrators backed into a corner of downtown LA known as Little Tokyo. A city known for its sporting prowess, for multiculturalism and a long history of resistance movements. This is now one of them. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Los Angeles.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by Theo Usherwood and Sonia Soda, who are both journalists and broadcasters. Welcome both. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Metro. But the top story here on Sky News, that school shooting in Austria. The headline, Revenge Massacre at School. We'll be right back.